Hello everyone, how are you all? I hope you all are taking very good care of yourself. You all are doing well. Today's video will be in continuation of my previous video that was about verbs, where I discussed what do the verbs tell about. If you have not watched this video yet, then you can watch it by clicking the link in the description box below. Okay, so today's video will again be related to verbs, and here I'll discuss transitive and intransitive verbs. But before that, I want to ask you a question. Why is it important for you to know about transitive and intransitive verbs? Do you have an answer? Okay, I think it's important for you to know about transitive and intransitive verb to improve your understanding about verbs and to improve your understanding about active and passive voice. Okay, you may think, how can I improve my understanding about active and passive voice by knowing about transitive and intransitive verbs, right? But you'll come to know about it. Just check out these examples. First example is, he went to the market. Now I ask you to change this sentence into a passive voice. I just guessed that you know about active and passive voice. So can you change this sentence into a passive voice? Alright, you got your answer? This sentence cannot be changed into a passive voice. What is the reason? Reason is very simple, that in the sentence a verb which is went, it is a past form of go. So it is an intransitive verb. So whenever a sentence has an intransitive verb, that cannot be changed into a passive voice. You got it? Now I give you another example. He bought a pen. And I ask you again to change this sentence into a passive voice. Can you do it? Alright. So what's your answer? This sentence can be changed into a passive voice. And the answer will be, a pen was bought by him. In this sentence, the verb bought is a past form of buy, and it is a transitive verb. And whenever a sentence has a transitive verb, that can be changed into a passive voice. It's very simple. That's why it's very important for you to know about transitive and intransitive verb to improve your understanding about active and passive voice. Right? Now I'll explain about transitive and intransitive verbs in detail and request you do not skip this video and watch it from the beginning till the end. Alright? Before starting this video, I'll talk about a few things which I have already discussed in the previous video in detail. But here, it's very important for you to know about those things. As I told you that every sentence has a pattern, and the most common pattern of a sentence is SVO. That means subject plus verb plus object. And a sentence cannot be completed without having verb in it. That means a verb plays a very important role in the formation of a sentence. Okay? And verbs can either be main verbs or helping verbs, which are also known as auxiliary verb. These verbs help the main verbs. Okay? And the main verbs can again be either transitive or intransitive. As I told you in the previous video, that verbs tell us about to be something, to have something, or doing something, right? So here, for this lesson about transitive and intransitive verb, it's very important for you to know that transitive and intransitive verbs are those verbs which show some action or which are related to doing something. Okay? So, transitive and intransitive verb are not related to those verbs which tell us about to be something or to have something. But definitely they are the verbs which show some action or which are related to doing something, like reading, playing, eating, sleeping, etc. These all verbs are showing some action. So they can be either transitive or intransitive. So what are transitive verbs? As I told you that a sentence has a pattern, SVO. So transitive verbs are those verbs which show an action which transmits or transfers from the subject to an object. Alright, so a transitive verb is a verb which shows an action which passes over from the subject to an object. That means something is being done to an object. An object is affected by an action which is done by the subject. Okay, so that verb is transitive verb. For example, he writes a letter. Here you see subject is he, writes is a verb, and a letter is an object. So here you see our action verb which is writes. Okay, so here you see an action is transferred from the subject to an object. So that means he is writing. He is a subject, he is writing. And what is he writing? A letter. So the object is affected by an action, something is being done to an object, and something is being done by the subject. So here you see the action is transferred from the subject to an object. That means it is a transitive verb. Another example, she eats an apple. Here again you see the action which is done by the subject is transferred from the subject to an object. That means something is being done to an object. That is the important thing which you have to keep in your mind, that action should be transferred from the subject to an object. You have to check whether something is being done to an object or not. And transitive verbs take an object. Remember that. So here she is subject. What is she doing? She is eating. And what is she eating? She is eating an apple. So something is being done to an object by the subject. That's why eats is a transitive verb. Let's take one more example. Ali sang a song. Here the subject is Ali, sang is a verb, and a song is an object. So here you see action is being transferred from the subject to an object. Right? So something is being done to an object, and definitely object is affected by the action which is done by the subject. So transfer of an action from the subject to an object. This is what you will see in transitive verb. Okay? So again, I tell you, when a verb shows an action which is transferred from the subject to an object, that means something is being done to an object, that verb is called a transitive verb. Okay? Now, intransitive verb. Here what happens? The same sentence pattern as before, but here there is no transfer of an action from the subject to an object. That means intransitive verbs do not take an object where the action is transferred from the subject to an object. Okay? Okay, I'll explain with a few examples. The baby cries. Here, cries is a verb and the baby is a subject. So you see here, intransitive verb which shows an action is not transferred from the subject to any object. Right? So all the verbs which show some action or which are related to doing something are either transitive or intransitive verb, but in intransitive verb, the action is not transferred from the subject to an object. So this action, cries, is done by the baby, but it is not transferred to an object. The baby cries. That's it. Suppose I add the baby cries in the room. Then also the action which is done by the subject is not doing anything to an object. Okay? So remember that in intransitive verb, the action is not transferred from the subject to an object. Okay? Let's take another example. He sleeps very early. So here you see sleeps. This is marked as a verb. He is the subject. So he sleeps. This action which is done by the subject is not transferred from the subject to any object. He sleeps very early. So it's not affecting to an object. So sleeps is an intransitive verb here in this sentence. Okay, got it? And you can check it, like, can you change it into passive voice? It's not possible. That is another way to check whether the verb is transitive or intransitive verb. This is a tip which I am giving to you. Okay, remember that. Alright, let's take another example. You are my friend. Here what is a verb? Are. This is to be form of a verb, which is related to be something. So it's very obvious there is no action word. So no action is transferred from the subject you to an object my friend. Okay? So you have to check it whether something is done to an object or not. And here in this case nothing is done to an object. So this is an intransitive verb. Let's take one more example. The birds fly. Here you see fly is a verb which shows an action, but this action is not transferred from the subject the birds to any object, right? That's why it is intransitive verb. Suppose I say the birds fly in the sky, then also you have to check it out whether the action is transferred from the subject to an object or not. And you will find that no action is transferred from the subject to an object. Nothing is being done to an object. And intransitive verbs do not take an action where the action which is done by the subject is transferred to an object. So this is the way to check out whether the verb is transitive or intransitive. Sometimes the same verb can be transitive or intransitive. How? Just check it out. Let's take a few examples. He ate an apple. Here, ate is a verb, subject is he, and an object is an apple. And you see an action which is ate, right? It's transferred from the subject he to an object an apple. So something is being done to an object. Something is being done to an object by the subject. So an object is affected by an action which is done by the subject. So ate is a transitive verb here. And you can change it into passive voice also, right? So ate is a transitive verb here, but ate becomes intransitive when I say he ate very slowly. Here the same word ate is intransitive verb. Why? Because no action is transferred from the subject to an object. This is an action word, but no action is transferred from the subject to an object. Right? So he ate very slowly, and you cannot change this sentence into passive voice. That's why ate is an intransitive verb. Okay? Let's take another example. She sings a song. Here, sings is an action, and an action is transferred from the subject she to an object a song. So something is being done to an object. That's why sings is a transitive verb. And can you change it into passive voice? Yes, a song is sung by her. So sings is a transitive verb, but it becomes an intransitive verb when I say she sings every day. So this action is not transferred from the subject to any object. That's why sings is an intransitive verb here. Okay, and you cannot change this sentence into a passive voice. Okay, let's take another example. He rang the bell. Here, action which is done by the subject is transferred from the subject to an object. Something is being done to an object. So, rang is a transitive verb. And you can change it into passive voice also. Like the bell was rung by him. But rang becomes intransitive verb when I say the bell rang. So here, this action is not transferred from the subject to any object. That's why rang becomes an intransitive verb here. When it doesn't take any object. So it's very simple. I hope you have understood well the difference between transitive and intransitive verb. Transitive verb are those verbs where the action is transferred from the subject to an object, and in intransitive verb the action is not transferred from the subject to an object. Okay, so it's very simple. Just watch this video carefully again and again and share it with your friends and family members. And in my upcoming videos, I'll bring more informative lessons. If you've liked this video, then please press like and don't forget to share it with your family members and friends. And if you are new to this channel, so do not forget to subscribe this channel. If you have not subscribed it yet, then subscribe it quickly. And if you want to read my blog posts, you can read them by clicking exploreandlearn.com. Very soon I'll bring another video. Till then, take care. Bye bye.